If you're feeling equally as disgusted and saddened by the recent verdict of Diddy, well, you are not alone. My name is Carolyn, and I have also gone through a nightmare where I had to report a predator, and the justice system is just really flawed. And I feel like every time a situation like this comes up, it is re-traumatizing and it brings back flashbacks for victims. So if you can relate to this, please watch this video and let's discuss how upsetting this entire situation is. My doctor was a predator. I went to him in therapy for child abuse. He knew all of my weaknesses, he knew all of my deepest secrets, and he was able to use all of that to weaponize against me, to groom me, and to psychologically torture me for 7 years. When I finally escaped, which is essentially a cult for one, if you've been in a narcissistic relationship, you completely understand. If you haven't, well, there's some research that can be done. Because those who know. And anyone who's hurting right now, my heart is just going out to you because it feels like we all suffer when a woman is not believed or her trauma is minimized or dismissed. So I'm feeling a lot of things right now because I also had the courage. I wanted to go up against my doctor. I wanted to do the right thing so that I could protect other people from what had happened. And you think when you have the courage as a victim to come forward with something like that, that people will be appreciative of it. They will think that you are brave, and they will recognize the strength that you have in wanting to name the things that people don't want to name. But that's not the case. You often are blamed yourself, you're not believed, and it takes so much strength to not just say, you know what, I'm just gonna try to ignore it and forget and move on. Because how can you do that when you know other people are still being harmed, right? So it ends up being the responsibility of the victims to have the gigantic strength to come forward to try to help other people. But there are barriers all along the way. There are incompetent attorneys. There are psychologists who don't even understand the impact. They don't understand coercive control. They don't understand psychopaths and psychological abuse, and that it's not even, it's predictable. Okay, like there's a certain path that all of this abuse takes, and you can pinpoint it, and people don't want to hear about it. So I'm not speaking to anyone who wants to push back. I'm not going to defend anything. I'm speaking to the victims who are also suffering and who have had to be braver than everyone else. And you haven't been believed. You wonder what it's for. And then every time that you try to heal, there's a new case that comes up or something in the public eye that cannot help but to set you back. And as a human who's autistic and who has a lot of empathy, I cannot help but to start ruminating. I also experience really bad CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And some of the most harmful things about watching a case like this is knowing that some of the people in your life support the predators. You end up realizing that you're very alone, and a lot of people just don't understand what you've been through. I'm just feeling so much. I'm feeling so much outrage. I reported my doctor to the state licensing board. I had 100 pieces of evidence. I thought, if I can't get justice, there's no way anyone else can. I understand my privilege. I understand I would probably be believed more than someone who didn't look like me. And I thought, I've got to take one for the team, and I will do it. And even with all of the evidence that I had, first, law firms, for the most part, didn't want to even take the case because there was no guarantee that there was going to be a payout for them in the end. Regardless of the fact that they all agreed it was egregious abuse and my doctor should absolutely pay. But they didn't know that they would get paid, so they didn't want to take my case. So even as I'm trying to do everything, and I don't think people understand, well, if you're a victim, you do understand, having to share your trauma with a receptionist, a secretary, I don't know, junior level attorney, people who don't understand abuse. You don't understand how distressing it is on your nervous system to always have to prove your pain and to prove your distress. I knew that I would have to, if my case was picked up by a law firm, I knew that there was a chance that I was not going to be believed and that was a risk that I was taking by testifying. And I was willing to take that because I thought, this was like 3 years ago, I was still naive enough to think that with all of the evidence that I had, with everything that I had that showed the grooming process through my therapy sessions to him traumatically ending therapy with me, I was sure that people would understand and would have empathy and compassion for an abuse victim of child abuse who went to a doctor and was then groomed. And I was experiencing seizures from this abuse. It was horrific. I thought, no, I'm going to do this and I will end up seeing justice. Well, I wasn't even able to because no one would take the case. My doctor did end up surrendering 2 of his licenses and can no longer be a social worker or a marriage and family therapist, but he's still allowed to hold his psychology license because he was not licensed as a psychologist while he was my doctor. So that's a really interesting loophole, right? So now I'm having to process that all of these women who have been heroes, they have so much strength, so much grace. Cassie was pregnant on the stand. I mean, she's a warrior. She was pregnant on the stand, and still, with all of the evidence, with everything that we all saw, we saw what he did to her. The jury still found him not guilty of some of the most heinous of charges. And I gotta say, it kind of makes me relieved that I didn't go through with my lawsuit, that I couldn't go through with it. Because now I'm realizing that there's a very good chance that I was still not going to be believed, that I was still going to be blamed. And I'm just really, really sad by all of this. And I know if you've been through something similar, I know you get it. I'm just feeling so many things. It is really hard moving through this world right now as a sensitive, traumatized, neurodivergent woman who sees patterns so clearly now. I didn't before. I didn't, and I took on everyone else's BS as if I just had to try harder. If I was just nicer and kinder and put other people first a little bit more, then they would finally be nice to me. And it wasn't it. My experience with my doctor literally broke me. It destroyed me for 3 weeks. Once I was told to watch documentaries about Ted Bundy and that was the kind of person that I was dealing with, I broke. For 3 weeks, I had, feeling it right now, I had shakes, I was freezing, I was trembling, I couldn't write anything. All I could do was I was trying to take video recordings of what was going on so that I could remember it, because I couldn't focus on anything and everything was happening so quickly. And then I was introduced to what a psychopath is. In this book, along with another book by Dr. Stephen Hassan, Combating Mind Control, it really started putting things into perspective and really started making sense of everything that I had been through. What love bombing is, what idealization is, and then to start devaluing you, and then the discard process, which in my case was abandonment over and over, which triggered my childhood abandonment, which just left me feeling like a shell of a human. Now that I understand what that looks like and I see it everywhere, I almost wish I could go back to being naive. I wish I could go back to thinking that there was a system that protected patients, that there was a system that protected victims. And in light of what is happening, I don't think that there is. And it is very disheartening. I now work with other people, other victims of therapy abuse, and I think in the beginning I would have been absolutely an advocate for reporting and going forward in all of these cases, but it takes so much out of you. And when you end up seeing how other victims who have, how much evidence does a person need? There are also a couple myths that I really despise about victims who come forward. One is that a woman is seeking fame or money, or first, I think my doctor tried to buy me out. I think he was trying to bribe me, and I think he wanted to offer me money before I went forward. He was cyber stalking me, and I think he wanted to pay me off. He told me how much money he had in cash before I had reported him so that I would know that he had funds available. I thought it was really weird that he mentioned that, and yet he did. So women, or that women benefit in any way, shape, or form, we are looked at as being troublemakers, vindictive, bitter, not as a victim of horrendous abuse that is trying to protect other people from experiencing the same thing. Predators do not have their lives destroyed. As I mentioned, my doctor is still allowed to practice. He has not been publicly shamed. I am too afraid to mention his name. I do not want that retaliation. I have children. I cannot deal with that. But it doesn't mean that what he did isn't absolutely predatory grooming. And he had access to the most vulnerable people. So I am feeling so much. I am feeling so sad on behalf of all victims who are not heard and believed, and I'm really sorry. if you've also been through an experience like this and you have had to have courage beyond measure just to have someone deny you your trauma or your pain or your experience. So I'm going to try to show myself grace today, do something nice for some women in my life. And if you have been a victim of abuse, I'm sorry that we're all having to deal with this and experience the betrayal of the justice system, and knowing that people get away with it. Thank you so much for listening. I know this was a bit of a ramble. If you want, please do follow along. My name is Carolyn, and I've experienced a lot of nonsense, and I really want to talk about it so that I can educate other people and we can try to heal together in a relatively safe space, because outside doesn't feel very safe.